Greetings, everyone. I'm very excited to be in conversation again with Julia Balaz, my friend and an amazing galactic astrologer who has a background in quantum healing hypnosis technique, other healing modalities. But you're really known, Julia, for your extraordinary work in exploring the fixed stars, galactic energies, intergalactic beings, how they're all impacting us and supporting us in our collective evolution in this time. So, thank you for being here today. And I'm very excited that we're going to be talking about Sedna, where she is in the sky right now, and her relationship with the Pleiades and Taurus. And you're going to weave in some other things as well. So, this is great to be in conversation with you today.
Thank you, Heather. It's such a delight for me to be in the space with you, and I am so deeply grateful that you chose this topic for our call. As I was reflecting on it for the last few days, it offered so much guidance and healing to me. So I really hope and pray that it will offer a lot of clarity and expansion for our viewers too.
So share some about what's been unfolding for you with all of this.
I think it'll make more sense when we dive into the mythology of Sedna, which I know you've been talking about in some of your videos too. I just remember last year when I got your beautiful book, Finding Our Center, chapter 13, you really go into beautiful details about Sedna's mythology. For anyone who might not be familiar with it, would you like to first share about Sedna's story so that my story then will make more sense in connection to her?
I'd be glad to. I think the Sedna story is so powerful and it really had a profound impact on my life. But the story of Sedna is an ancient Inuit story about the goddess of the sea, the Inuit goddess of the sea. But the story unfolds with Sedna, the maiden in her village, being pressured by her father to marry because that brings another fisherman, another hunter into the community to help support the people. But Sedna's conflicted and she resists being married off to someone from another village. And then one day, a mysterious stranger comes to the village, and Sedna's drawn to him and ends up going off with him. And this stranger takes her to his remote rocky island and pulls back his hood and reveals who he is. And he's actually Raven, which for the Inuit people was the shaman, the teacher. So, in a profound way, Sedna realizes she's now on this path of spiritual initiation. She's then on this island, isolated with Raven, who teaches her, guides her, goes and hunts for fish, brings it back to her. Meanwhile, the father is very concerned that he's hasn't been in contact with Sedna. So he sets out to find her. He eventually finds her on the island while Raven is off hunting for fish and wants to bring her back to the village. My sense of the story is that Sedna realizes at this point so much has unfolded for her, she can't go home again. She's on this path of initiation and transformation. The father forces her into the boat, into his kayak, starts back to the village. Meanwhile, Raven returns to the island, realizing that the father is taking Sedna away. So he touches the tip of his wing to the surface of the sea and sets off this huge storm. The father, now being terrified for his own life, throws Sedna out of the boat. She's caught in the storm and in the waves. She grabs for the boat to get back into the boat, and the father hits her hands with his paddle, breaking off her fingers that drop into the sea. and morph into seals and whales. And Sedna, still struggling in the ocean, realizes there is no safety in the boat. And she dives deep below the surface of the sea and is transformed and dissolves and becomes the goddess of the sea. And the Inuit people honor her as the goddess of the deep sea who can provide them with fish for their sustenance, but she can also be the goddess of the sea who brings the storms. So it's very much a tale of her transmutation and transformation.
Beautifully shared. What I love about this story is how, despite the unexpected reaction of her father and the great disappointment and rejection and all the emotion that she had to go through in the story, she, the essence of her soul, of her wisdom, and of her infinite ability to create was not diminished by the whole traumatic experience. And it's something that that really stood out for me in the past life regression sessions that I was facilitating for over 7 years. The stories of my clients that were the hardest, the most difficult, most traumatic experiences, yet the light, the beauty of their soul remained untouched. These were the clients that I felt most inspired by because they had this generous, kind, compassionate spirit despite the horror that some of them went through. And that always gave me such hope and faith in the power of human spirit. And I wondered as I was reflecting on current transit of Sedna as she's shifting through tropical zodiac of from Taurus to Gemini, and that majority of humans on Earth that are alive, or majority that was everyone that was born past the year 1965 would have Sedna in Taurus. So all of us are embodying and experiencing the echoes of her story through the archetype of Taurus. So it's all about self-worth and all the myriad of types of experiences that come in relation to our father, and not just earthly, biological, or adopted father, but also relationship with the masculine and essentially relationship with God. And that's something that I have realized in the last few days. And interestingly, Sedna just is right now conjunct my ascendant. And I didn't realize that until after the spontaneous experience that I had, um, that helped me go deeper into my relationship with God through the healing experience. When I realized how there were unconscious energetical knots based on my experience with my father, and how that was unconsciously projected into my experience with God. I believed I had a good relationship with my father. He was there, but there were well, just three really key moments in my life when he wasn't able to be there. He was late for my birth. He came 2 or 3 days later, but not because he wanted or didn't care. He just couldn't be there. He was traveling. He wasn't there when my foot was broken as a teenager, again, because of his work engagements. And then later, at the important or sensitive teenage point, he unintentionally made me feel unworthy. But that moment helped me decide to become independent and strong. And I'm grateful for that experience, but I didn't realize until this week that that decision to be independent, and not because of the disappointment I had, a deep disappointment I had in my father in that moment, which from a mental perspective is not very significant. It was, teenagers are stubborn and they want, and if they don't get it, it's a big deal. But that decision was affecting my relationship with God too. I realized I didn't let him support me as fully as he is available. So it was just such an amazing realization. And I want to share this story with the audience because we all share Sedna in Taurus. And especially mine is in 12th house. So the the issues are more hidden, or maybe more even on a collective level, or even from past lives. The relationship with my fathers may have been a lot worse in my previous lifetimes than now. So I'm learning to to heal a relationship with the masculine, and as a result, I'm also healing relationship with the feminine, because the feminine in me is by now exhausted with taking care of everything myself, and not no surprise when we suppress something emotionally, not realizing, because mentally we think everything is okay, we have everything under control, but the body always tells us if it's too much. And I started having my left hip pain for the last 6 months, and I consider myself still very young. And as I had this realization, this spontaneous emotional release as well, on a walk in the field, the hip pain disappeared, vanished overnight, and it's a week now, and it's still not back, and hopefully it will not be. So, I want to invite the viewers to really reflect back on your relationship with your father and any key moments in your life that you've had. Yes, mentally you understand him. He couldn't be there, or he prioritized his own needs, and you're okay with it mentally. But emotionally, can you tap into the biological memory and any energetical knots that might be stored somewhere inside your body, where you're maybe holding resentment and frustration and even tiredness, perhaps at this point? And can you let Sedna's transit through the early degrees of Gemini or late degrees of Taurus, not still quite recently, activating the Pleiadian collective story, which is also talking about the relationship with father, who couldn't fully be there for his daughters because he was banned or punished for eternity now to hold the heavens on his shoulders. Such a burdensome, such a burden of a fate. And we don't really talk about that aspect of the Pleiadian story much in terms of the relationship between the daughters and the parents. So Atlas, the Titan holding heavens on his shoulders, and Pleione, the mother, connecting the Pleiadians to the kind of celestial realm, right? She was the nymph, the goddess, the one that is guiding us, guiding the travelers across the seas. So I think because of that Pleiadian connection, which is on my ascendant with Sedna there, this whole connection came up. And of course, these powerful transits of Pluto, Mars opposition, squaring my natal Pluto, Lilith there, and all that. It was just like, it was time for me to heal another layer and connect deeper into what's available to me, what was always there all along. So I really hope it'll inspire the viewers to take a good look at their own relationship with the parents and essentially with divine.
Thank you for sharing that, Julia. I mean, it's so profound, and what you're sharing has so many layers of meaning for us in terms of, part of what I think you're saying that's very profound is, as we're in this time of shift, we're all being called to look at what are those unresolved wounds that we carry that can block us from moving into higher consciousness, or block us from being more in balance and in harmony within ourselves. And it's interesting that you're talking about, as Sedna's in Taurus, it's not only activating issues around self-worth, but Taurus is also about our embodiment. So you're so beautifully describing too that when something's unconscious, that we're carrying some wound from the past that needs to be resolved, if we're not able to bring it into our conscious awareness, the body will often be the messenger of that. But how beautiful that you listened to what was coming up and really worked it to bring it into the light of awareness, and then your body could release it.
Yeah, that was a beautiful validation that something major really must have shifted. Yeah. So for the viewers, do you hold any aches and pains, especially on the left side of the body and especially in connection to the bones, because it really talks about a deep seated ancestral patterning that needs to be addressed. And especially for viewers that have Moon in Gemini or on in any air sign, we tend to just analyze or overanalyze the emotions, not really feel them, but it really requires us to go into the feeling, let it come through the body. The emotion needs to be released so that the stuck energy can be dissolved and peace restored and a greater balance and harmony in our connection with the divine.
Well, and you're also so, beautifully talking about how we are such integrated beings, mind, body, spirit. And we can sometimes, as you were saying to me before we got on the recording, we can think we've resolved one of these issues because we've come to terms with it rationally, intellectually, but it doesn't mean we've resolved it emotionally. And that I'm really finding, and I'm sure you are too, with the work that you're doing with clients, with your community, that as we're in this accelerated time of change, whatever those wounds are that we haven't resolved are getting pushed to the surface, not to weigh us down, but to actually set us free to be able to more fully heal them, clear them, to be moving into this expanded state of consciousness, which Sedna so exemplifies. How do
Yes.
we move through these experiences that we have into expanding consciousness to morph, which I think we're morphing into becoming homo luminous ones, beings of light, and moving beyond the current physical state that we're in now.
Yes, I love Sedna for the fact that she, to me, represents the cosmic messenger as the last known object in our solar system, traversing the outer skirts of our solar system. And I think we really ought to pay attention to what is directly behind her on the heavens. And right now, it's the Pleiades. So I believe a lot of the Pleiadian um, human DNA in us. I believe we have Pleiadian ancestors, and um, there are so many cultures that hold great reverence to the a beautiful cluster in Taurus constellation. There is so much rich history, whether in Nordic countries or Asia or Maori. So many cultures have mythology and stories in connection to the Pleiades. So, because right now and for quite a while, this Pleiadian stories and anything I believe unresolved in connection to Pleiadian history, in how it relates to us humans, whatever Pleiadian inheritance we carry, especially in relation to the wounds and traumas and unresolved emotions. I believe Sedna will be guiding us to look at them and through her immense wisdom help us resolve and dissolve them so that we can become these gifts, that these lights, just like she became herself. She's teaching us through her own experience, right? So would it be okay if we look at the Pleiades? And I would love to explore first the the stories that we know of about the Pleiadian humans, whether through channeled text or through some of my regression hypnosis stories, through some of the soul records that many practitioners looked at in my community. So looking at the Pleiadian human history, then how it is reflected in the mythology or vice versa, and how it plays out in our human experience, especially for those of us that have whether through biology connection to the Pleiadian human DNA, especially the Nordics, but they seeded other human colonies throughout the earth, throughout the ages, and then see how we can together fulfill the mission that I believe we are here on collectively, which is reliving some of these emotions of unresolved traumas that were sprinkled all across the galaxy so that we can bring higher consciousness through and help restore peace, balance, and harmony across this beautiful Milky Way galaxy. Would you agree that you also have that sense that that's what we are really doing here?
Yes, absolutely. And before we get too much into that intersection with the Pleiades, I think, as you said, it's so important to realize that Sedna is this messenger to us of this profound time that we're in. As you said, she comes from the furthest reaches of deep space in our solar system out to the far edges of the Oort cloud into our solar system with her 11,400-year orbit when we're at a critical time of shift in our precessional cycle. So part of what's so powerful in your story, Julia, is it's the microcosm of the macrocosm. We're coming out of the time of the Kali Yuga. This last several thousand years that have been the time of our getting caught in our traumas, our wounds, our paradigms of separation, power over. The only time in the processional cycle that we're caught in the patriarchal model and paradigms is in this time of the Kali Yuga. So I think there's a way in which Sedna is the messenger of this shift that we're in and calling us all to heal the father wounds, to come back into a balanced understanding of the sacred feminine and sacred masculine. So it's beautiful that we need to do our personal healing, but also we're needing to do collective healing as we're transitioning into this Aquarian age. And I think that then creates a backdrop for our understanding how Sedna's interaction with the Pleiades is another layer of that collective healing also.
I love how in mythology, it's the story is about her going to the deepest depths of the ocean and how she had to go through the experience of surrender to the fate, the things that she could no longer control. And it feels like right now, whatever is going on in the world, it can we control it uh, physically in some way? It's almost like just observing what is happening, surrendering into the depths of our being so that we can find the guidance that is absolutely required for us to survive this and come out on the other side transformed. Would you agree?
Oh, beautifully said, Julia. And I think tied in with some of what you said at the very beginning, our soul selves that journey through different lifetimes across time are always whole and healed. It's our personality selves that go through these traumatic experiences and need to be healed so that then we can align with our soul selves in a more integrated, whole way. And as we can do that healing of the trauma from the past, then more and more we can connect with our soul selves and fully connect with our hearts. That is what supports us in surrendering to the energies that we're in right now and trusting that we're held and supported and loved by the divine energies that are guiding us through this transition so that we can really feel like we are in this process of transmutation, like Sedna, into a whole new way of being.
Yes. I wonder if it is by divine design, surely it must be, that as she comes to her closest point of the orbit, so we can actually now pay attention and receive her wisdom um, through her closeness, just like in the mythology. There's times when she came to support humans that remembered her and asked for her guidance, right? And brought even gifts in appreciation of her being there for them. So as this happens, she's transiting very particular degrees or a very particular location in the sky where she seems to be bringing the information from very particular star systems. Since she was discovered, she was activating the Andromedan frequency because the Andromedan stars were behind her. Cetus actually at the very point of her discovery, as you pointed out just before we recorded. Then Perseus, again, very powerful mythology, and just before she became conjunct to the Pleiades. And over the next 20, 30 years, she will activate all of these stars of Orion too. So, and just before that, Aldebaran too. So I think all these nations have played a really important role in humanity in the age of Atlantis and even before. I mean, divine design.
Yes, and let's not forget Cetus, because
Yes.
she's discovered she's under the stars of Andromeda, but she's right by the head of Cetus. So how extraordinary is that, that when we discover her in 2003 in the sky, she's close to the whale, the Cetus, that energy of the deep. And I think Cetus is very symbolic of the sacred feminine. So she's saying, bring things back into balance. Let's and as you said, helping us reconnect with our galactic allies that are and those energies within us as well as those beings outside of us, but calling us back into healing, calling us back into transformation. So talk more about the Pleiadian themes and how that's getting activated by her in this time.
Hmm. I would love to start with the channeling of Lisa Royal Holt that reflects some of the stories that I've witnessed through spontaneous regressions of some of my clients. Around 2019, I started, well, prior to 2019, most of my clients were regressing just to their own past lives here on Earth and ancestral stories, early childhood, to resolve stuck emotions and find clarity in their current life. And then around 2019, more and more, and almost like every client, after they did all this healing work, then the last segment of their regression happened to be spontaneous regression to lives not on Earth. Um, so Lisa Royal Holt, she published several books and an amazing galactic heritage cards deck. And here she talks about the Pleiadian history, where, first of all, we wanted to define, and I see this in galactic astrology charts too, that the Pleiadian genetics connects to the Lyran genetics. The ancestors to Pleiades are Lyrans. And we see that through astrology. When you have a Pleiades conjunct, you would have Lyra trine. So right now, Sedna is conjunct Pleiades, but it's also trine stars of Lyra. And trine to me always speaks like of a deep ancestors, deep connection. The gifts of that nation is within you. So the memories of the ancient Lyrans are also echoing through the Pleiadian humans. And the most um, significant story is of having to leave everything they knew and find another world to live in. And they were adapting this way for a long time for different reasons. And just like Sedna, she too journeys out of everything she knew and reestablish herself in a completely new identity in a completely different world. And it was very much like that with Lyrans and then Pleiadians too. So it is believed that even before Earth was seeded with human life, the ancient Lyrans that had to evacuate en masse, massive motherships, where interstellar travel was already well developed and by many nations, by many star systems, and even the trading relationships were well established across many different star systems before human life on Earth. And there was a fraction or a portion of Lyrans that decided to start their new life, new home in the Nordic countries here on Earth in Scandinavia before it became a colder climate, before it had a colder climate. So it was this beautiful Eden. So, many nations on Earth, and especially the Nordics, they would consider the Pleiadians their ancestors, their grandfathers. So the the original Lyrans would have um, enjoyed several generations living in Scandinavia until other nations started visiting Earth and taking ownership of different parts to the point of conflicts for ownership and war, and the atmosphere wasn't as ideal as they wanted. So these original Lyrans decided to leave the Earth. They didn't want to be part of the conflict, and they left and then colonized a planet in Pleiades, joining the other fraction of Lyrans who colonized Pleiades directly from Lyra. So they connected there, and then much, much later on revisited Earth again to because of the memories they had of this beautiful blue gem of a planet. They came back. So we, especially, humans that carry the story of or the genetics of the Pleiadians, especially through Scandinavian, and I myself happen to have this lineage, and I shared how we can track our galactic lineage through galactic astrology by looking at the placement of stars at the time of our birth. And if you look at the genealogy through astrology of your parents and grandparents and great grandparents, if there is a star system that even biologically the DNA is there, you will see that star in a very prominent position throughout many generations, as I have seen through the research that I've done as well with my community. So I did a DNA test to see if I have any Irish roots. I live in Ireland. I was born in Slovakia. Half of my life now I'm in Ireland. This feels like home to me. So I wanted to know if I have any DNA that's Irish, but I don't. Uh, but I have Nordic. I discovered the Nordic lineage that gives me the blue eyes and paler complexion. I had this beautiful spontaneous connection to the Pleiadian ancestors that came um, or that seeded a fraction of humanity here on Earth in Nordics several years ago. And it's the most beautiful frequency of coming together through and a frequency of love and joy. I heard them through songs. So I heard the female singing their song. I heard the men singing their song, coming together, working together in love and harmony, and everything they did for the well-being of the whole community. It was such a beautiful energy to receive, and the message they said at that time was, remember your ancestors, remember the true frequency that is not polluted by the traumas that occurred across the ages. Remember the original frequency of that. I experience that energy as blue, and I feel on a soul level like a blue frequency that comes with courage and truth and um, justice and balance and delivering the original human design of living in harmony with nature. Would you like to add to any of that before I go further?
It's just incredibly moving to hear you describe that, Julia, because that's my own energetic and intuitive sense of the Pleiades is that the Pleiadians is that they're trying to play such a critical role in supporting us in remembering who we truly are, remembering how to come back to love, remembering how to be back in harmony again. So that's beautiful.
Yes, I'll never forget that experience. So we want to remember that inheritance that we carry. And I want to explain that because of that interstellar ability, travel ability that they have, they were able to seed many other worlds. So that DNA is wildly spread. The original Lyran, I mean. So we have the Pleiadians, Alpha Centaurians, which happen to be on the opposite end of the zodiac if we look at the astrology, and many other races too. There is the reason why I wanted to bring up the deep history of the Pleiades and their story of having to evacuate, having to leave the beautiful world that they've created. Like they've experienced that archetypal story of some external force coming in as an invasive, predatory, domineering energy experience. And then what do? So do they fight back? They tried, didn't work, so they left and re-established themselves in many other worlds. And I see that people who have Lyran connections, Pleiadian connections in their chart, especially through hard aspects, they are experiencing the echo of this story in this human experience, whether through being born in a country that then is invaded and they have to evacuate. There's so many people on Earth that have a story of external force, having them move and reestablish themselves somewhere else. But it's the story of resilience, right? Adaptability, having faith, and bringing the tradition with you wherever you go, re-establishing home and what is true for you wherever you go, wherever you are. There's really powerful, strong energetics, and also their immense ability to create or manifest in physical reality, having a vision of how things should be and then making them happen. That was a very strong frequency through the songs of my ancestors that I heard, was their what's a good word for workaholism? It's like they were always engaged in working through joy. They loved singing while working. The song was carrying them through every activity they did. But the sense I had was they're constantly doing something that was making
Manifesting,
everybody's experience better. There's a word for it that is escaping me.
not overworking in the sense of
No,
that
it was through joy and
negative connotation, but that sense of being so involved in service and manifestation and
yes,
creation,
yes,
the joy of that.
absolutely. So, um, this is some of the galactic human history that we know of. Um, and I wondered, how is that reflected in the mythology about the Pleiades, and where are some of the traits that I see with the Pleiadian humans being clearly expressed as a Pleiadian signature? And one of them is um, an ever-present optimism for a better day, better world, idealistic way of seeing others in relationships, but also situations and the world. Like, no matter how difficult their past was, they always aim to see the best in every situation. So there's this amazing activating optimism, but if it's in its shadow, it can they are avoidant of looking at the dark side. They're avoidant at looking at what did cause them hurt. They like to avoid these things. And I think Sedna currently activating that certainly is my trait. I have that highly optimistic focus, and my body always tells me when I'm ignoring something and when I need to look at the shadow side. And thank God for that. I love my body for all the pains and aches it gives me because it keeps me in check. But this is very, very strong Pleiadian signature. So I want to invite the viewers to make sure that we are not ignoring the shadow side, because if we do, and Pleiadians experience that too as a collective, that event, because they were completely suppressing the deep emotions of things that were out of their control, they manifested physical, like a virus, at one point of their history. And same for us, we manifest some physical issues if we suppress. So stay connected with the body. Would you like to comment on that?
I think what you're saying, which is so crucial, is in this time of transition that we're in, we need to be careful not to do a spiritual bypass
Mm.
and think we can just go right into higher consciousness. That you're really saying, and the Pleiadians are helping us realize we have to look at what's in the shadow. We have to heal the wounds from the past to move forward in an integrated whole way. That you can't just override it and pretend it's going to go away.
Yes. There is another shade to this trait that they have of being very optimistic. That they also love to save the day or help those that can't help themselves. And when they see in an issue, in a situation, in a relationship, or in a physical reality, they feel like they immediately know how to fix it, or they need to make it better. They love that positive, beautiful, high vibe frequency so much that they feel really motivated to fix things, and with so much eagerness that they don't stop to think and have a foresight about how that action may actually impact all involved. And I wanted to bring this in also to help people check themselves when they have that tendency, especially if you have Pleiades, so early Gemini or late Taurus, if you're speaking tropical zodiac in your natal chart, anchored with any of the planets, whether through conjunction or through aspects, you may recognize that trait in yourself. And especially now when so much is wrong with the world, we may have that desire to fix perspectives of others, even without them asking us to, or help where help is not asked for. If you know what I mean. So I was looking at the mythology then to see where that is in, and it's really the Taurus mythology that may be pointing to this characteristic, how that can play out in our lives through the Taurian archetype, where um, the the god, was it Zeus, that changed his shape to become this beautiful white bull to entice beautiful, what was the name, um, woman to fall in love with him, uh, in his opinion, to rescue her from her current reality to the point where he became possessive of her. So there is this stubborn desire to change people's reality and change outcomes, that then have consequences to that too. So just again, perhaps as we heal our relationship with ourselves, with divine inside us, we will have that foresight and guidance about, are we uh, changing something and playing with divine laws and kind of going against them, or are we even asked by by life to fix certain situations, or can we just have faith in universal laws and divine design to allow certain things to play out in order for certain lessons to be reached and things change that way? I don't know. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, it's just interesting listening to your analysis of this. And I really do encourage people, I'll put your links below to explore their own connections to these different stars and galactic energies to see what their lineage might be, because it's absolutely fascinating. I've done it with my own chart. But part of what you're talking about, or let me ask you this, is it feels like we've got these lineages of our own interaction or experience of these other galactic beings, but now it's interacting with our human experience.
Yes, very much.
And so the Pleiadians may, in their current higher level of consciousness, be more in balance with all of this. But some of us as humans, and I know many, this is an issue for many women, get caught into compulsive caretaking because there is so much trauma, there is so much imbalance here in our experience on the earth. And I think part of what you're saying that's important is not necessarily that we not engage in helping others, but be able to be in balance enough in ourselves to know when it's in right alignment with us to act in service to another or help them, and when it's in right alignment to let them be in their journey.
Let them be in their journey. Yes, beautifully said. So not to cross the boundaries.
Yeah.
Respect that too. It was Europa, the Phoenician princess that Zeus wanted to, or abducted, or wanted to abduct, and he made himself this beautiful white bull to entice her. But yeah, again, it's about possessiveness or yeah, crossing the boundaries. So as you said, and thank you, I wanted to bring that point in that every civilization has its past, present, and future consciousness. And I see that past, present, and future based on the level of frequency of their consciousness, how evolved. The more evolved feels almost like futuristic because they already um, have that higher divine perspective of all the cycles and have gone through all the lessons already. And I really do believe that through this Sedna connection, she is in fact helping us to tap into that highly evolved Pleiadian consciousness that can help us see clearly in every situation that we are facing now. So that we don't have to go through the same turmoil and mistakes over and over and over again. Like, how many more lifetimes of these echoes of the past do we still want to live?
That I think is so important because I think that's reflected in her orbit, where I do believe when she's out there at the farthest reaches of our solar system, she's actually communing with the other star systems. So I think part of the messages that she brings to us is not only when we're in these times of significant shift in the precessional cycle, but she's trying to bring us this star wisdom to balance our limited perspective because of our experience on the planet and these past 1,000 years of being in patterns that are out of balance, that are triggering trauma and wounds. She's reminding us of our higher selves and what we're capable of. And part of my own exploration of the precessional cycle is, that is this journey we go through of evolution of human consciousness. And like the Hindu Yuga cycle, we go through these patterns of descending consciousness, ascending consciousness. But I think Sedna is reminding us we can get off the wheel. We can really come to center, come into alignment with our hearts and our soul selves to, like Sedna in the myth, transmute into higher consciousness rather than continually going through these cycles in our lives and in these ages on the planet of remembering, forgetting, of going through periods of trauma, of recovering, of moving back into consciousness. We can make this evolutionary leap into higher consciousness. The time is now.
Yes. I wonder how the Atlantean or Lemurian connection also plays out here, because I found it fascinating that the asteroids of Atlantis and Hawaii, which to me connect to the Lemurian age, were very particularly aligned during the most important transits. Just, I think, the week ago, asteroid Atlantis was conjunct Shapley attractor, squaring uh, Pluto and Mars. So I do believe that many of us are also uh, reliving or bring that what's coming to surface in our being is whatever emotional unresolved trauma we had that we carry on a soul level all the way to now. That are we guided to release any guilt that we may be carrying, frustration that we couldn't control the outcomes, um, and all the full spectrum of emotions that may have been there. So I just want to remind anyone watching that the intensity of feelings that is coming up, it's not just this current life experience, and it can feel almost like we are going insane because on our current level reality we are really upset over something so insignificant. But I now see through my experience last week that whatever the soul can use to even trick us in any way to relive the emotion that needs to be relived, they'll use whatever is available in our reality to get fixated over something. But it's really about the emotion that needs to come out. And once you relive it, you will actually have a flashback of some other situation that is completely not part of your current reality. And when you have that, then you know that, oh my goodness, thank God I allowed this to just come through. We just needed to come through to just witness it. And that's how we serve, and that's how we collectively help uh, making the Earth's um, energetical sphere lighter. That's really, I believe, what we are here to do, to support, as I've seen through so many regression sessions where the souls, where these clients remembered that they came here for Earth. Really, so many. These are hundreds of people that had absolutely no idea about working with the Earth, but suddenly it's like they remembered themselves as a soul somewhere else. And they were like, I'm coming here to Earth because there's so much love in my heart of my soul, so much compassion. And I understand because I'm connected to the entire cosmos that this solar system right now is very important for the entire galaxy. It's moving through a very particular time and space in the galactic um, space. It needs as much light and love as possible to be anchored so that it can go through this powerful transformation that supports all sentient human and planetary and star life across the galaxy.
Mm, very profound, Julia, because part of what you're saying is whatever happens here on Earth is affecting the whole galaxy.
Really believe that.
So
Yeah.
this is such a profound time on the planet. And I think some of what you're saying too that's so important is not only are we clearing these past lives or the past traumas on the planet in what's getting activated in us, but many of us who are soul selves here to support the healing on the earth, many of us who are empaths and highly sensitive are also clearing it for the collective.
Thank you for saying that. Yes.
So I think some of the things we're often feeling or having to, as you said, bring to the surface to release may not even be our own trauma at times. But as we can honor it, feel it, release it, then we clear it not only for ourselves, but for the collective.
Yes. I do see the the fruits of our commitment to continuous healing in reality manifesting already, even just comparing the past life regression sessions between, well, before 2019, say 5 years or so, when I was engaging with that, and how long it took for each individual to relax and go under and access their past lives. We had to go through the entire script, really take time. It was, I don't know, half an hour. And then past the 2019, and I find it interesting that Sedna actually came into the Pleiadian frequency at that time for the first time. People started almost spontaneously accessing their past lives. Many more and more so, like as time was passing, it was easier and easier for people to access their past life memories. I often actually had sessions where they didn't even get a chance to lay down. They suddenly started experiencing their past lives just sitting on a chair. And this was something that was reported across many other practitioners that I was in contact through a forum, that, yeah, it's our consciousness is changing. We don't need regressions or anything like that at this point already. This is now 5, 7 years later. It's, trust your ability to tap into the wisdom of your body and soul and allow information to come through, as long as you just create this safe space of quiet solitude where your soul can speak to you, and you'll be surprised how much can come through. We just need to get into habit of creating that beautiful sacred space, mornings, evenings, regularly, every day. It's so important at this time. Do you agree?
I totally agree with you. I mean, as a clinical psychologist as well as an astrologer, it is stunning to me to track in the last 5 years in particular how issues that used to be entrenched for people that they'd work on in therapy for years to try to clear are now able to heal in this very accelerated manner. And it's also fascinating to me when I started my astrological practice. And one of the ways that I work is evolutionary astrology, which is looking at past life trauma in the chart. I used to rarely talk about that because people had such difficulty attuning to or accessing any issues around past life trauma. Now, every reading I do, that's right on the surface, and people are rapidly connecting with and understanding what they need to clear from past life trauma so that it isn't getting re-triggered or reenacted in this lifetime, but can free them to be then in their own healing journey and then become a healing energy for the planet. So the level of healing that's there for us right now is incredible. But I think what you said just a minute ago is very important in that. And it's part of why I love the medicine wheel practice. We need to keep finding ways to stay grounded and centered and come back into connection with our hearts, our center, and our soul selves to navigate the intensity of all that's coming up and getting cleared and all of the change that we're in right now.
Yes, it is your videos really that helped me, that kind of hammered in the message for me about the importance of staying in the center, and especially during this potent time like now we had this grand square and I felt the message of Pluto, message of Mars, message of the Sun, message of Lilith coming through Sedna, and I was like between them all I was like going insane, and it was then your image and your voice and your message coming through, get to the center, get to the center. And I just sat there and I was like receiving it from the center, and suddenly the clarity came through and the epiphany and everything. So that's the only way, isn't it?
Yes, and I think the other message I'm really getting from what you're sharing today that I think is so important for everyone to hear in the tumult of this time of what's coming up in the collective to clear and heal, in the intensity of what's coming up for us personally to clear and heal, the level of healing energy pouring into us to support us, to hold us, to help us through this is so incredibly strong and beautiful. It's coming from Sedna, it's coming from the Pleiades, it's coming from the energies of the sun, from the Galactic Center, from the inner earth. You know, I was just talking with Barbara Hand Clow, who talks about the inner earth beings singing the songs of harmony, the Pleiadians singing the songs of harmony. That when we can hear that and attune to that, it's supporting us in moving through this time of transmutation and transformation.
Thank you for saying that. I want to add, I believe the whales are committed to one song that they keep singing across the times that will eventually will match that frequency and fully understand it as their commitment and their service. But also the soul groups of every single one of us. That is one of the always the most beautiful experiences that I've witnessed in these regression sessions. Once everything was cleared and suddenly the person was able to remember their soul family, soul group family, just these beautiful beings of light and infinite unconditional love, and the pouring of the tears and the emotion and the remembrance that they never forgotten us, they never left us energetically, they keep sending love and support and peace to us constantly, because if you think about it, there are these scouts, brave, most courageous souls that agree to incarnate on Earth, and they are leaving behind. Well, oftentimes they come together with an entire group from certain planetary body or solar, and there's a whole other collective that is aware that there's this group of souls that left for a short amount of time in their perspective, and they, I believe, hold gatherings to keep infusing the supportive energy towards the entire earth, and that particular soul is their anchor. How to do that? There's just so much like in that beautiful Avatar movie when the whole collective comes together with the same song to support whatever the transformational experience is happening. I see it, feel it, know it happening. If we only knew, we would be down on our knees crying in gratitude and just wow. So thank you all for being here at this special time.
Beautifully said, Julia. And thank you for being here in this special time and making that soul commitment to come and support this transition. So thank you. And thank you for the wisdom that you shared today. And thank you to all of you listening and the way in which we together are supporting each other to be in this time of transition to create a new earth together. Thank you.